one of the ways I can get a man to make a change in his life is to connect anything back to his erections. If a man fears his sexual health will suffer, he will take action more likely.
What's up, everybody? We've got another episode today in our Leaders in Business that are outside of real estate series. And it's a fun one, very different than any sort of business owner we've had on before. But before talking about our guest, Mason, how's it going?
And things are great. Dan, thanks for covering the last few episodes as my wife and I expanded our family with the birth of my daughter. And I think this was just a really, really cool conversation. As you know, my life has dramatically changed. I want to stick around for a very long time. And in order to do that, you have to take care of yourself, which is what Amy Garza, Dr. Amy Garza, does with her clinic Age Well, that's based in Austin and Amarillo. She takes care of patients at a very individualized level, treats women, men, and couples, and helps them out with all sorts of different things to improve their quality of life in the short term and the long term. But we don't need to talk much before, because this was one of the better and more fun interviews that we've done in a while. So without further ado, let's bring in Dr. Amy Garza and y'all enjoy. All right, Dr. Amy Garza, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, super excited to have this conversation with you. I'll attempt to not make it all about myself, as, you know, a former healthcare worker turned, business operator, and you're a physician that is now running your own practices. But before we just kind of dive into everything, who are you? Where are you from? And how did you get from there to where you are today?
Yeah. Well, like you said, my name is Amy. I am a physician, and actually I'm an anesthesiologist by training. So that's how I started my career, and not stepped out of that. I put people to sleep for almost 20 years, and the downstream end of medicine, where you're taking care of things that keeping someone alive when they've already gotten to the bad part, right? So at some point in that journey, I knew I wanted to move upstream to where people were, not quite at the end of bad things happening. So, and part of what pulled me there was personal. I um, had been an athlete my whole life. I grew up a gymnast, played golf competitively, and I always paid attention to my body, and just watching this sickness over and over that seemed really unnecessary. And it was the same thing happening in my own body at the same time, as I was kind of going through some midlife changes, going through a divorce, and I just like I just was really pushing through, and it's like something just seems really off here, and I couldn't find answers, and that's very frustrating when you're used to being able to easily find answers, and inside this container of medicine, I struggled to find answers. And as I searched, I discovered this thing called age management medicine. We call it longevity medicine now, but back when I started doing this almost 14 years ago or so, it was, it wasn't so common. And so um I discovered this beautiful path after that has just taken me to where I am today. So it's been a fun journey.
That's awesome. And I promise not to talk about the healthcare system too much. I think you kind of alluded to it, of the healthcare system is more sick care rather than wellness care. And I remember in grad school, the focus on MACRA and MIPS and value-based care that I don't think exists quite yet. Um, uh, to my understanding. And as an anesthesiologist, I imagine there's depending on where you were and what you were doing. I can tell you, my wife's best friend right now was the anesthesiologist that gave her the epidural last week. That made everything better. But what kind of led you, when you were an athlete in high school? Yeah, I was pre-med for a little bit. What made you want to pursue medicine as a career?
I love this question because I've spent so much time trying to figure out where the journey started for me in medicine, but because I don't remember a time when I didn't want to be a doctor. That was just kind of what I knew I would do. And I don't know the genesis of that, but it was just always part of what I would do. And grew up in the 70s when we just that's like profession I could be a professional, a teacher or a doctor or a lawyer. Maybe, my dad was a dentist. I didn't think really outside the box back then, and so it was just I knew I loved taking care of people and, I don't know, just it was a very natural thing for me. I didn't know, I mean, it was really what God created me to do. It wasn't a very thought out thing at the time.
Yeah, and I think that's something funny, like, looking back in high school, it seems like those were the career options. If you could be a professional in some capacity, you could be a doctor, a dentist, a vet, an engineer or an attorney or something like that, and then you get out into the real world and you're like, what is business? And like I remember, yeah, Baylor, it was the pre-meds versus the business majors. We were always studying and we were like, who are these business, dumb business kids that end up going and making money right after school and everything like
Yeah.
that. And it's you didn't even know it was an option.
Well, I was so tunneled. Yeah, I was so tunnel visioned. I didn't realize there were other options. I mean, that's how ignorant I was back then.
Oh, I mean, exact same. Didn't know there was a career, and didn't know there was a career in healthcare administration where I started too until
Yeah.
I got interviews for medical school and freaked out that I was going to be in school for the rest of my life. But let's talk a little bit about the transition. So, anesthesiologist practicing for well over 10 years, and you one day wake up and decide, all right, this wellness, longevity care. Tell us about the origin of Age Well, how that happened.
So I had started a different clinic before Age Well, and I was married at the time, and it didn't. I wasn't really doing it by myself, and I felt some support and help, and so it seemed kind of the natural, easy thing to do. Very shortly after that, though, I went through a divorce, and I had a child in fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, and eighth grade. And so, being a single mom, um, and, it was a lot to juggle. And so I opted to step away from medicine altogether. And at that time, I felt a very strong calling on my life to help women so that nobody's kids, nobody had to go through that experience that I was going through. And so I actually went to seminary. I was like, I'm going to be a counselor. I'm gonna get my master's in counseling. I'm going to prevent this from happening. Just silly ideas. And um, around that same time, I needed to retake my anesthesia boards, and something in me shifted, and I just was like, I'm going to go back to anesthesia. This is what I have to do. And within a very short time after that, a friend came up to me and she said, "You realize what a difference you've made in my life, in my marriage, from how you've helped me with my hormones." She said, "I really think you should start a clinic." And I was just like, I don't know anything about how to do this. Like they don't teach us a single one sentence in medical school about business, let alone like an hour. So, but she was like, I'll help you. And so I was like, okay, let's just do this. I'll just hang a shingle. I mean, it was literally, I had no idea what I was doing. And she backed out about a month into me hanging that shingle. And so I've had to figure it out on my own. And I don't really believe in mistakes. I have to say I've had a lot of learning opportunities over the years. And it's been the greatest gift that I could have ever given, and the way that those trials have given back to me over the years is unbelievable. But it was again, like most things in my life, I just like, "It sounds like a good idea. If somebody else could do it, I can do it. I can figure this out." And so that's how Age Well started, with one patient who was a friend reminding me that I made a difference for her and the other people that I had helped, even though I'd stepped away from the clinic when I'd gone through my divorce. And so one patient at a time, I just have built this, beautiful clinic that is not just helping one patient, but that those patients have really rippled through, right? They're the kingdom impact because of the legacies of family that is changing from just being able to focus on one patient at a time, I think is what makes it easy to keep doing it, even when I'm still trying to figure the business part out 8 years into this clinic.
Sure. Okay, so that's how you got into starting Age Well, but let's define for our audience a little bit more. Who do you serve? Is it women in middle age? Is it men and women? Who is your patient?
Yeah, that's a great question. We like focus on midlife care. So our patients are generally we'll say 35 to 65. We take care of men, women, and couples. So our we really want to help people understand what's changing in their bodies, how to take action with confidence of that, right? Because knowledge is, we all know knowledge really isn't power. It's action is where it's at, right? So we want to help them take action with confidence so they can. And then the third part of that is like we want people to be able to age the way they want, what that looks like for them on their own terms. So it's, traditional medicine is like, here's what you have to do. If you're bad or wrong, if you don't, this is what it has to look like. Instead of what we get to do is take people who are going through this really vulnerable time in their life. So much is changing. The most common thing we hear is like, "I just don't feel like myself." Like, people have been told they're fine, nothing's wrong, like, they know that that's not the truth for them, and so we get to walk alongside them and hear them and remind them, like, "You've lived in your body your whole life. Nobody knows it better." Like, I it's just, we really, really believe that. So, when a patient tells us something's off, it's our job then to take the time to figure out what that is and work with them to do that. So, men, women, and couples in midlife who just want to build a body that can keep up with the life that they've built. You work so hard to build this life that you want to live, and you want to enjoy it. To people, I want people to be able to experience the life they've worked so hard to have, and so you need a physical body, a mental body, spiritual body, all the parts of you have to be healthy to do that. And so we that's what we get to do every day is help people keep the body they want or find that body again.
Yeah, I love that, and it sounds like you found a way to mesh that counseling aspect into your practice. I've gotta think if you're talking couples through the changes that happen in midlife and getting to where they wanna be, I've gotta think there's a component of that, and I haven't been married for decades or anything like that, but I've gotta think in a long-term relationship, the changes that happen to you, to your health, to your body, both the man and the woman can affect the relationship, dramatically. So I love how you managed to combine those different aspects. And it also sounds like it's more of a focus on preventative care and planning for the future and sustaining. I think a lot about, especially as I get older, just being able to do what I can do today for the majority of the rest of my life. So, am I getting that right? Is it a lot of preventative focus?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I like to call it proactive care. So it's, we focus on data-driven care that's proactive. So we use, I think symptoms are people's biggest data set, but we take that people's symptoms and then an incredibly diverse and deep set of data from all kinds of labs and advanced labs and biomarkers that a lot of traditional doctors aren't checking, and using that information to be proactive about how we're gonna handle this. So there's so many diseases that we can see decades, really, at least 5, if not 10 or 20 years before they happen. And traditional medicine, like we talked about earlier, we're taught to identify something once it's happened, right? Um, and that model is just built so backwards. So it billing codes aren't preventative codes, right? They're the way doctors get paid, if they wanna get paid in the traditional system, is by identifying a problem that is existing right now.
Yeah, that okay, we'll pivot to that in a second because I think that's a really key part of this whole conversation and the business model. But one other thought that pops to mind just as you're talking is it sounds like your medicine is very or proactive medicine is very individualized, which I think is also so important. I'm a layperson, but I find this stuff interesting. So I'm always listening to podcasts from Andrew Huberman or Rhonda Patrick, a lot of those people that
Mhm.
are in a similar sort of space. And something that I've taken away from that is that, people are so different. And, I think I heard one of those people say on a podcast, if you give one person a banana and another person their insulin response and glucose levels could be totally different in how they respond to that banana, just as an example. And so, if you can get individualized medicine, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, I love that you say that this is, I'm gonna tie that to this transition you're talking about with the business, because this is one of the things that has, been really difficult as an emerging, learning to run a business. Medicine is really good medicine anyway, is really a mix of art and science, as most, so many things are. And scaling one or executing on one is different than executing on the other. And so this what we pride ourselves in is how good we are at treating each person as an individual and thinking through how to continue, how to scale that and how to grow that as a business without losing that really important piece of of what makes age well so successful is because we can take so much time to make sure we know you and your goals and your, it's like, the banana thing. It's like, is a banana good for me? Is usually the question I get is yogurt. Is this yogurt good for me? Right. And there's like, the answer, unfortunately, is always, it depends. Right. It's like, what are your goals? Where do you want, because the answer is going to be different depending on so many things. So yes, that personalized piece is to me the most important part of how we can make a difference for somebody. And it's interesting. Um, what I discovered well into this, probably a good 8 or 10 years into doing, um, age management medicine, is that my gift in this field and what made it so natural for me and so fun for me is titration. And so this personalized piece is really, the the lived being of me titrating the care to the patient and what they need in the moment. And when I was in the operating room as an anesthesiologist, that was my job every second of the day. Was I was always titrating medicine to that patient in that moment for what was happening, around them. And that was and is, I believe, the missing piece from this bigger field of call like right now, there's so much talk in the hormone space, and everybody is trying to manage hormones, and it's deceptively difficult. It seems so simple, but the nuances and the titration piece is really important. And I came into this field with those glasses already on. That's the only way I've ever practiced medicine. So it was a one of those gifts that I was prepared along the journey without even knowing that's what I was preparing for. It was pretty cool.
Interesting. Yeah, this is fun to talk about because I'm a nerd in this space. Again, complete layperson, but I read about this stuff all the time, and I find it kind of analogous to economics, where people that are trying to make specific predictions in what's going to happen to interest rates or the stocks or whatever. It's just ridiculous. You have such a complex system with literally millions of interacting variables and stakeholders colliding at any moment, and like the human body is kind of the same way. Like you mentioned, hormones, and it's something I've read quite a bit about. And you change one hormone, and then in an attempt to maintain homeostasis, there's what 10, 20 N level reactions that are down the chain from that one change you make, and it's very hard to manage and predict everything. So it's just a fascinating topic in my mind.
It is. It's what makes it be fun every day.
Oh yeah. And I'm sure Dan's done research whenever he was in, high school getting peptides from China to, be a bodybuilder uh, um, back in the day. But Amy, let's talk about the team. What does the org structure look like at H Well? Because you have two clinics, and I can't imagine it's just you.
It was when it was just me, it was way easier. I'll tell you that. That's how I started, right? And so, uh, but so I'm still looking for the person to help me run this business with me. So that it is me wearing multiple hats, being such a small organization. So, I am providing medicine, and running the business. So, juggling those is always a challenge. I never want to leave the patient care piece. It is what I love the most. I love the challenge of figuring out the business, but patient care is the most important, most fun. It's what keeps me going. So I have a nurse practitioner that helps me do that. So I oversee her. And it's important to me that she's an extension of my brain when I'm not there for my patients, that they're like my family. They're so important to me. And so um, our culture is really important, to make sure that I'm hiring people that are going to teach patients the way I do, think the way, just in general with their own touch on it, of course. And so she is who sees primarily the patients when I'm not in the office, and then we both see patients when I am there. And then we call a concierge staff. So we have somebody that is a communication concierge. So her primary role is to make sure that patients are taken care of from if they're calling, if they have any digital, she's more digital facing or phone facing. And then we have a lead concierge in our office who is the person that's there taking care of whoever's in the office right in front of them. So doesn't have to get distracted with other things and patients can have full attention. And then we have a medical concierge that works one-on-one with patients' medical needs and make sure their clinical programs are going the way they should. And she keeps them in path that way and make sure we have the right medicines and supplements and things in the office. And so they each have different roles and because we're small, everybody does a little bit of everything.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, and yeah, I can see the, the flow of the patients and everything like that. And we'll walk through kind of the whole, patient life cycle within your organization here. But one thing we noticed on the website, you're a cash business model, which I love, especially. I just hate insurance companies and the complexities that go, with having to take insurance and the billing side of things and everything like that. But what what made you decide cash versus insurance, or a blend of both?
Well, I'm gonna be honest and transparent here. The the biggest factor was I didn't know anything about insurance companies and how to deal with them. So it's like, take that friction away and just not deal with them. But it was really much deeper than that. I had no motivation to wanna learn, right? I mean, I didn't there was not there's and a lot of people over the years have said, "Oh, you could bill for this and bill for that." I'm like, I don't want to. I have zero desire to deal with that. I mean, and listen, doctors who are in the insurance system, like, they are some of the hardest working people I know. Like, I take my hat off to them. The problem is it's the operating system that they're working with, right? It's not it's from a patient's perspective, in my opinion, it is not ideal. It's the traditional medical model is just built backwards, I think, right? We are taught in a way that we find a problem and we assign a diagnosis. Um, when we do, that diagnosis has a code, right? And then that code unlocks a certain amount of reimbursement. And so it's like this. So basically, you you get this approved list of what you're allowed to do, and when you're in a field like, or longevity medicine, there's so many things that whoever they are think that we shouldn't do, and it's just unacceptable to me. And so if I truly, in my opinion, I'm the one that took the oath that is to do no harm, and so for me, I believe that it's there's so much more to it than what an insurance company tells me I can do. And even though I don't take insurance, I still deal with insurance companies when they tell a patient they can't have a medication, they can't have a certain dose, they need a different brand, and things that are just to me clinical calls that shouldn't be made by a non-clinician or someone who hasn't met the patient.
1,000% agree with that, and not having to fight based on what amounts to be the insurance companies not wanting to pay, and they'll cite it as God, what did I hear all the time of, philosophical differences in treatment plans and stuff like that. I think simplifies the business, which makes it so where you're able to actually operate, as versus fighting insurance companies and having these calls with, the providers that never actually meet the patients or understand what's going on. So, your business, I think, is extraordinarily beneficial to the population, and will create through lines, to the real estate industry to a certain extent. But it's, starting at the beginning of lead generation. A lot of your patients, I imagine, are coming to you in a very vulnerable state. Maybe it's their sex life is not, what it wants to be. Their body's changing, all these different things. And it sounds like from what you said, starting with one patient at a time and everything, you probably have a tremendous amount of business that comes in from referrals. But how do you go out and communicate with the public and market to actually get more patients to come into your business?
Yeah, so I'm just starting to do this more because it has not been a big part of my business. I haven't needed to do that. We have built a really strong, loyal group of patients because people are ready to have care staff. I mean, beyond just me, it's not just me as the doctor, but the entire, team is loving and taking care of people, and patients are that's all I mean, all of us as humans just want that. So I just haven't had to do that, but I as we're wanting to grow and starting to grow, I'm learning a lot about this. And so we have community events scheduled in our area where we are doing the equivalent of what in medicine people call lunch and learn. So where people can come and learn in the evening and hear about the problem they're having and what the options are, because honestly, a lot of people don't even realize there are options. They really believe this is just how it is, And so we're growing that. We've transitioned in December to a newer business model. So we have a ongoing offerings for our own patients where we have a monthly book club and a ask the doc, like a Q&A where people can just come and ask questions, and sometimes people will have opportunities for people who are s- VIP members to bring guests to those kind of things, just to expand the reach there a little bit. And then we have now a quiz on our website where people can go and like learn if they where they kind of fit in this. Like, is what they're experiencing to be expected? Do they have to accept that? Is there something that can be done? And so just it's just an easy, simple way to start to realize, oh wait, maybe I can change something. And so those are the biggest ways we're doing it right now. Interestingly, in the one referral pathway that has not been really great for, I think, small cash pay clinics, is other doctor referrals. So I do have a handful of really solid doctors that refer to me. I think it's fabulous. And it's not because the other doctors don't trust us or believe in us or know we can help. But there's really two factors. Most patients coming from that are coming from the system. And so they're expecting us to be in that system. And so it's a big shock when they're, essentially to seemingly the primary care doctor they don't have to pay to go visit on the regular because they're paying their insurance premiums. Then they come to us and it's like they're like, wait, why isn't that part of that? It's confusing. So we've just found it's easier to not spend a lot of energy with insurance based doctors, sending us referrals. We still are teaching them. I do try to do educational talks to teach other um, primary care providers some of the nuances of what we do so that they can help their patients without, having to refer, which is which has been fun. So,
Oh yeah. Well, and I, talking about it, like every week we would meet with the business development staff on referral sources, and for us in behavioral health, it's obviously the acute care hospitals with emergency rooms where a majority of the referral sources came. And for you, I imagine with a lot of the PCPs and everything like that that are a part of the big practices and systems, there the, there's just a client mismatch. So I imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm making an assumption, is it's more the concierge doctors that don't have this within their practice that you maybe have a better relationship with.
and I have a great relationship with them all, but it's not their patients are expecting something different. I take care of a lot of them,
Yeah.
but it's really people outside of our referral sources are more people outside of medicine. A good referral partner for us are people that take care of the same patient that we take care of, but as a client, just not as a patient. So, with the exception of some very personalized gyms and trainers, people that are working on the physical side of people's health. We work a lot with that. I get a lot of referrals from nutritionists who are these big have big comprehensive programs for patients to figure out what's going on. By the time people get to us, they've often tried a lot of things, and they really haven't quite figured out how to connect all the pieces. And so um, when we're looking for referral partners and talking about how do we want to market, and the piece of connecting the dots, I think, is a really important one. And because we still work alongside people's primary care doctors, so I need to have good relationships with those doctors, because when I they have an acute issue, my patients, I want them to go to their primary care doctors for certain. But I from a managing the nuances of their whole health care and what that looks like, a primary care doctor just can't do that. I mean, they just can't. We work together but they don't necessarily refer as much. I don't know if that makes
Yeah, no,
sense,
it,
but
it absolutely does. I would bet a lunch and learn at like the Lifetime Fitness downtown in Austin would, yield
Yeah.
more patients than going to like, a federally qualified health center or something like that to, integrate in there. But
yeah, and it is hard though. I mean, like we go most doctors go into medicine because we're naturally altruistic. We want to help everybody. And so there really is a battle when you make a transition, and I've talked to so many doctors that have left the conventional model to go to a cash pay model or left, one field of medicine to go into another. And it is a real struggle for most of us to recognize that we have to accept saying no to some patients. It's very, very difficult. And that's when you make the choice to become a business owner and a physician, that is a choice. That is one of those things that you have to learn to juggle and manage. And there are days it's really tough and it's can be emotionally really challenging. And so one of the reasons I try to get on social media, one of the reasons I started a podcast, I know I can help people who can never be my patient if I can just disseminate the information because there's so much misinformation. And so that's one way that I personally have tried to deal with that pull of wanting to help everybody because everybody deserves great medical care. I mean, that's the sad thing is like that the system is broken. I don't know how to fix it. So I could just focus on, the part that I can do as with the part that doesn't take me down in the process, right? Like I want to make sure that I can one of our core values is be the inspiration. And if I'm burning myself out and living, if I'm trying to tell people how to age well and I'm not doing that myself, well, then that's a problem.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
That does sound difficult, but it sounds like you aren't considering ever pivoting and in time incorporating traditional insurance billing into your model. Yeah. Okay.
No,
That makes sense. Well,
not a good fit.
yeah. Yeah. So something you mentioned a few minutes ago that I really liked was you have the book club and you have the Q&A with yourself on a regular interval. So it sounds like you're building a community for your patients, which I've got to think will really help your retention over time. I would imagine you're gonna keep people for life most of the time. Um,
That's the hope. That's the plan. When we this is all new. We're just starting this membership portion. We're still in a transition period. So you can imagine I've hundreds of patients that have been a fee for service with me for a long time. And in December we switched models. So it's great for all the new people coming in. They don't know any different. But for my, you know, the panel of patients I have that is not used to that yet is part of why we've had to think really hard about what do we need to do to make sure that we're offering the value to them ongoing. So not only are they okay with the model change and then the price adjustment that comes with the model change, but then how do we make sure that we're going to continue to deliver for them ongoing so that they'll stay because they want to, not because they feel like it's their only option. And so for me, this community is a way I think that we can really add value because this can be a really lonely stage of life for people because it's a lot of these problems are difficult to talk about. And so we haven't done this yet, but in one of our Q&As we're it's because I'm learning the technology still of how to do anonymously, but I would like the lots of people have questions, sexual health questions. They are not about to go on a Zoom call or show up to a clinic in a group full of people and ask about why they, can start having sex and can't finish because they can't keep an erection. I mean, like no one's going to do that in a group full of other dudes. So, um, I know there's a lot more that we can do to help provides, that value for people. So we're just trialing and erroring right now and learning a lot of new ways to do that. But my hope that was all part of that retention, intentionally working through how do we retain people with this new model that because was a price increase for us. So um, we want to make sure and deliver on that. And
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so you've got the new model in place. You're working on adapting to that and getting your systems and everything in place. Now, from here, where do you go? Because I've got to think that the biggest constraint is going to be your time and your ability to treat people. So, are you planning to bring on other physicians, or what does the future hold?
so I have this little piece in me that believes that I have this mission to change the experience of medicine on both sides of the exam table. So I think that patients are disillusioned and doctors are disillusioned. And so um, if you know nothing else was in the way, I that would be the mission that I would figure out exactly how to do. And because scaling is hard and because I'm still in the middle of trying to figure all that out, every time I move forward with that plan, I'm like, maybe I'll just stay right and just, be my own little micro clinic. But ultimately, I am working very diligently on creating great curricula to transfer the knowledge I've gained over the last really 40 years of learning the body and, the science and then the experiences of how do I translate that? It's very straightforward to teach one other provider in my clinic, but to teach that to multiple to be able to scale is what I've been working really diligently on because I feel like the legacy for AgeWell is not to sell to private equity and for me to exit with a bunch of money, but for me to train other doctors to be able to do and have clinics just like this. And so the piece of that is it ha- there's a lot of clinics in especially in the telemedicine space opening up very quickly and growing very quickly, scaling very quickly, but they're missing the quality piece in they're often, I should say, missing the quality piece in that true personalized, individualized care for patients. And so I'm not I don't want to go big without doing it right first. And so for the next little while, it's really building the foundation of what we have at AgeWell with one primary clinic, a satellite clinic where there's no staff, just me with patients, and prove out the teaching system. We've proven out the medicine piece really nicely. And so now it's like let's make sure that we can deliver on the repeatability of the teaching model. And so um doctors are teachers. I mean that's what we do, and there's a different art to teach mass teach versus teaching one-on-one. So I think it's going to be really an important piece of growth, and I'm excited to keep working on that. And because I think clinics like this should be everywhere, and it's taken me 8 years to get this far. So if there's a doctor that's sitting in the operating room right now that's like, I hate my job, I want to leave, I want to do something else, it's not just like you just go it's not that simple, right? Like you can't just you need a path laid very clearly out for you. And there are certainly people that try to do that. But if I was that person and could find somebody that says, I'm gonna teach you the medicine, we're gonna handle the business for you. You just get to go be a doctor and have your own clinic. I mean, I think that would really help a lot of burnout doctors and really help so many more patients who benefit from what we have to offer.
Sure. So, what other constraints or major challenges are there in your business that we haven't talked about?
Let's see. I'm the biggest one, which is getting out of the way and letting the staff work, right? And I think we're getting better and better at that. I think it's just the biggest challenge is making sure that everybody understands and what to expect and what we actually deliver. So um, when we do that well, the business doesn't struggle and everything is pretty smooth. When we get into trouble is when we uh, haven't conveyed with the patient the expectations that we have on them and that they can have on us. It's definitely a two-way street. It's a very collaborative environment. So, um, when that happens and, one patient has different expectations and ideas, it can really the morale of the entire team can shift and change, and that makes running a small business hard.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely it does. And making sure, staff are bought in and, your patients definitely understand the whole process. That's one of the challenging things, about running a clinic like this. So with kind of moving towards the membership model rather than just like the strict fee for service, let's talk a little bit about some of the metrics you're tracking within the business or will be tracking of, is it like cost per patient, like on a monthly basis now as versus like, here's how much it costs, here's what the revenue is, and, just subtracting one from the other. And then how do you kind of attempt to create efficiency within this model? And I'm asking a bunch of questions at once. So you take it whatever direction you want. And do you expect there to be an increase in the margins on the membership side rather than the fee for service side, or not? Because I know you said it's costing a good amount of money to switch to this model.
So the biggest things that we're tracking right now are the conversions at the different steps. So we have a pretty fluid journey. We have an opportunity to have a call to find out what the process is. If it's on the website, but we like to start with that so people can understand. And so we're looking at the conversion. How many people book the call? How many people transition to the next step, which is an assessment with us in the office. And then from that, how many people book with a program to work with us for months at a time. And then how many people from there decide to stay on as a long-term patient in a membership. So I think those conversion rates are the biggest things that we're tracking now. And so that we can have a really good idea of retention over time, and then where in that flow are people falling off, so we can really understand why.
One quick question there of, so discovery call, foundational assessment program, and then membership. I guess why not foundational or after the assessment going directly into the membership rather than the program first?
Yeah, great question. So I just had a business advisor tell me recently that we should skip that step, and so it's funny that you bring that up. But this is the way I was fee for service for 7 years and got incredible results. And some people got results fast, and some people got results slowly. And I essentially had a quarterly membership because I won't say forced, but we had people come every quarter. So every 3 months you saw us because we wanted to see what your labs were, what you were, what we needed to adjust. I just learned very quickly that there's no static in this profession when it comes to especially hormones and this stage of life. And so, and we caught a lot of things early by seeing people frequently. But for some people, when you're titrating medication, every 3 months is like an eternity. You go to your doctor and you're like, try this, and I'll see you in 3 months. And then you try this, we'll see you 3 months. And then like it's a year and you finally get where you need to go. And so I wanted more people to have the experience that the people that got well quickly had. And so I realized like when you put people into a program where you're seeing them more aggressively up front, you get results much quicker. So now everybody comes in one of two program. Well, there's time frame wise. Some people do 3 months, some people do 6 months, and it really just depends on the depth of the more advanced lab testing and the more problems we need to deal with. It just takes longer. But the goal is at the end of a program, you're optimized well enough that every 3 months is plenty. And if you need to see more in the meantime, that's fine. We offer that. It's part of the membership. But this way people know they're going to get well quickly and they are going to have results fast. And I think that that's just really important for people to feel like we're holding them. So we see everybody about once a month during a program versus once every 3 months or as needed, after that. So
I think it makes sense. And like, it's so hard comparing, human health to other industries where it's like, I've got a car wash membership and I go, 4 times a week whenever, I have a membership as versus whenever I don't have a membership, I go like every 6 months or something like that.
Mhm.
And so on a margin standpoint, do you make more whenever they're in a program versus whenever they transition to the membership? Or is it similar? Or how does that work financially?
The margins are, they're similar. They're pretty similar. They are lower. While the revenue is significantly more, in a program, the margin is not. And, because we do so much upfront testing in
Hmm.
that. I mean, that we do test, some of our programs. I think what people don't realize is the cost of labs is a lot. And so when we're doing genetic tests and really advanced markers that, like we're talking thousands and thousands of dollars worth of tests. So, it's we ongoing, we don't have as much of that into the membership. But part of the reason that also that I wanted to make this change is one of the most important parts of medicine to me that's missing is hospitality. And the art of medicine is like the hospitality industry does that so well. They scale art well. And so, you know, I don't want to learn from hospitals. I want to learn from the hospitality industry more. And so I have all these ideas of how I want to treat our members and the gifts I want to send them and the extra touches I want to do. And this like the reality is like, when you go to a hotel and there's all kinds of free things, like, none of that's free, right? You just pay for it up front. So I want to create the same atmosphere at our clinic where you get something very special at different points in your life, and I want each staff to have a budget when a patient comes in and says, "This, my sister just went to the hospital," or "This just happened," or that they have the freedom to send flowers or send a card, or we do that pretty well now, but we don't have the capital. We don't have the money to do what we want to do, and so by doing the membership, we can really add more to the experience, and so that's just fun. I mean, I think like already when you go to our clinic, it's in a house. You can't see the exam table. They're hidden in each room. Like the feel is not a doctor's office. And so I want to, as we build and grow this membership for people to be like, this doesn't even like it. Like they don't even realize they're at the doctor, right? They walk in, there's coffee. It's the whole, like, it's not a doctor's office. And the, the membership allows me to do that better with, the pricing so that even though it does have better margins because I think in order to get there and retain people, I think you have to give them results fast. So that's the balance between, doing the program with a little bit less of a margin, but we're getting real buy-in there, I think. And so and also to answer that question, each step of the way, people can opt out at any point. And so some people just like they just want the labs and they just want an assessment. Like, what's my situation? So some of people know coming in, they're never going to join a program or a membership. They just want to nobody else will run these labs for them and explain them. And you can do that online, but nobody's going to tell you what to explain it, right? Like so we really get deep into that. And then if there's lots of people that they can't afford a membership and they know that, but they really want a program so at least they can get to where they're steady and maybe their primary care doctor can manage them from there. And so this model also allows us, like I was alluding to earlier, I can't help everybody and not everybody can afford to be a member at Age Well, but some people can just do these different pieces. So
No, I,
yeah.
I think that's great. And there's so many through lines, within both mine and Dan's business of, it's great to do a flip on, a development project and get all the cash back at once. But it's really nice when you can, sell land on terms and get the monthly recurring revenue to, fund your operating expenses and stuff like that. And I love the hospitality aspect. It, sounds like, like the Ritz Carlton, all the employees have, a certain amount of money that they can, go spend on customers and stuff like that to, fly across the country and get their laptop or whatever if they forgot it for a work meeting and being able to do that. Why would they go anywhere besides Age Well whenever you sent flowers to the hospital, whenever one of your patient's sisters were admitted or something like that, which is really, really awesome and makes it, I can't wait to see one in Colorado Springs. Cause I think this is the future of medicine, of wellness and longevity and, actual prevention rather than, getting to that point. on your patients, you treat men, you treat women, you treat couples. Do you have an idea of the breakdown of the demographic? Do you have a lot more women that are patients because it's a woman-owned business, or is it a pretty even mix, or how does it kind of break down?
There are definitely more women than men, but it's not as a big a gap as it was in the beginning, or I would think. Part of that is men just wait longer typically to go to do something, and that's just typically. And so a lot of times we'll see the wife first, and then she's like, "Oh my gosh, my husband needs to be here," and then we end up seeing the husband. So as we've grown, the male population with us has grown as well, but it is, traditionally was really like 70-30 to women to men, and now we're closer to 60, 40, and, honestly, and I mean this in the most loving way, but women are complicated. Women are very difficult to take care of, for so our hormone patterns, and it's I love taking care of couples because I can help I can be the third party in the room that helps a man understand, like, why he got quickly well, and his wife is still struggling 8 months into this. Like, it's just a very hard time for women. There's just a lot going on, and we can make it so much better, just miles and miles better, so much better. And so, it's just to give a man the understanding of the patients is what couples are just the best. It's so fun, but women are tend to hear more in the media too that that there's help out there. So I think that's another reason that they just tend to be more active in their health and decision making.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's on men realizing, go to the doctor, guys. Check
Yes.
things out.
Yeah,
And
I'll tell you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
then,
The the newest thing that we'll be doing at the first of the year is a new so because of that, and as I think about like how do we reach men, like we're not just a testosterone mill. We're not like there's men, the guys, they just want their testosterone and they're going to go on their way. Like we are not, that's not our patient population. So there's definitely places for those people. And but if they're men who are interested in more, really understanding and more whole body care, and why that testosterone is so important, and why the nuances of how you take it and when you take it matter. So one of the ways I can get a man to make a change in his life is to connect anything back to his erections. If a man fears his sexual health will suffer, will take action most likely, more likely. And what I've also learned about a lot of my male patients is they love data. Like I'm a total data nerd, and like I love data. I will collect, like I have every 3-month labs on my patients for the last 8 years. I have lots of data. I love it. And so there's great labs out there now that will allow us to do really advanced biomarker panels on super advanced cardiac panels, for example, which a lot of people are interested in because they don't want to have a heart attack. But what we call the canary in the coal mine for heart disease and vascular disease is erectile function, because those vessels, you it's all the same vasculature, but you notice it, your sex life will suffer often before you'll have a heart attack, right? So if I this the new program that we're building is a really extensive biomarker panel that is designed really for heart health, but from the lens of sexual health. So, and part of that will be really evidence-based markers that we can test at the beginning and test, you know, 6 months later after we've had this program of change to see not just like, are you noticing it in the bedroom, but can you actually see it on your biomarker panel? And so it's just like taking the data nerds and taking the people that really only care about their sexual experience. It's like a little bit for everybody to have an ongoing program where you're going to prevent your heart attack, but we're not even we're not thinking about it from that lens, right? We're thinking about from the bedroom experience. And um just in the trial guys that we have some stuff going with it, it's been amazing and fun, and because we're doing really neat things. Like we have, a lot of people wear their wearables. You guys wear a wearable, like an R ring or a Whoop or something, right? So we have one. It's called FirmTech. It's an erection wearable. So you wear it to sleep, and it monitors your nocturnal erections. So these are things we can monitor and watch to tell a guy, hey, we actually can prevent. We can see a heart attack coming by watching that. So we're really trying to do more cool stuff for men to get them interested earlier in their health so that we can prevent so much more and be proactive. And listen, I can tell you, like, guys don't want to have a heart attack, but that's not very motivating today for 10 or 20 years from now. But the idea that before you have your heart attack, you'll not be able to have the same sexual experience, and by the way, we can work on that now. It just speaks a little louder.
Oh, it absolutely is. I think that's great being able to, focus on the short term to benefit the long term and the data that you're gathering. I mean, I see the cascading impacts that you're going to be able to have, like just gathering what amounts to be population health data that can turn into research that can change, millions and millions of lives. So that's so awesome. And um, I guess on that, you do such a good job treating the individual person and treating the family unit as well. Do you see yourself within uh, kind of your practice adding more service lines of, or is it already there? Specifically the behavioral health. I think about like one of my buddies out here owns an allergy and immunotherapy company that does tremendous work because so many people don't recognize that allergies are a lot of the root causes to so many problems. Are you currently doing stuff like that, and or are you planning on adding more and more to treat the whole person?
Such a good question. We do a lot, but we also know our limits, right? So, this you can go so deep, and we look at everything through 5 pillars. So we're addressing mindset with all our patients, which is you just not just how do you feel about getting older, but what is your purpose? What, those kind of things, because that's the most important longevity piece. And then we talk about nutrition, which is deeper than just nutrition, right? It's like, what are you taking in? How are you processing it? What are you absorbing? How are you eliminating it? It's much more in depth. So we're dealing with all the functional medicine from that perspective and gut testing and all those things. Then, of course, hormones is what people typically find us for. And and that's not just the sex hormones, although that's what drives most people to us, but it's insulin, glucose, cortisol, thyroid, all the many, many more hormones. Then we have the relationships and sexual health piece that we've talked, quite a bit about. That's because your sexual health is your health, right? That's super important. And connection and relationships are the large, big, big part of longevity, right? With purpose. And then the last piece we call healthy habits, which is where some of those other things come in, which is mostly sleep, stress management, recovery, and exercise. And so, while, for example, the allergy thing doesn't fit in there, the way we're doing our testing is looking. I love functional medicine, but what I say about what we do is more of we have a functional approach, meaning we're looking at root cause. But I think where some of functional medicine gets it wrong is there's another layer deeper, which is the cellular piece, right? So we're looking at down to the root cause at the cellular level. So this is why we geek out and nerd out on peptides and all those things, because we aren't just saying, oh, this peptide does this. We're saying what cellular pathway in this patient is compromised. And from that information, which peptide will address that particular cellular pathway in a way that will allow the patient to then heal or get better or have this outcome. And so this is why the whole peptide landscape is so scary right now, because very few people understand the way those things actually work in the body. And so if I had my way, Mason, I would have a a clinic that had not just doctors doing what we do, but we would have a nutritionist and a chef, and we would have a trainer, that covers not just strength, which is the most important longevity organ is muscle, right? But that would do agility and balance and all the other things that are important for aging well. And we would have a psychotherapist and a specialized sex therapist and sex educator. And I mean, I would love to have all those people at my disposal at all times. because those are, while I help people understand those are important, and I just have to refer out most of the ongoing care of those things, because we can give you a plan and help execute as best we can, but that's why those people are so good at what they do. So,
Well, maybe down the road, that will be the vision you put together, is kind of having an in-house full concierge service for all those different specialists, which would be,
yeah, wouldn't that be great?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But Amy, we are over time, so I want to not keep you too late here. I'm sure we could talk for another hour easy enough. But tell our audience who might be in Texas or anywhere where they can find out more about you and what you're doing and where your clinics are at.
Yeah, so, the clinic is called Age Well. So our website is agewellclinics with an s.com. I are the bigger brick and mortars in Amarillo, and then we have a satellite clinic here in Austin. And so, I am licensed outside of Texas, but we are not a telehealth clinic. We do see people telehealth after they've established with us, but we ask all our patients to come once a year to visit us in office. So, we have people fly in from all over the country and stay in Amarillo, and we do that once a year, and it's good for us because we really like to get to know people that way. And then we're on Instagram at AgeWellMD, so you can find us there. And if you go to the website, you can take the quiz. You could just it's agewellclinics.com/quiz. You could take that quiz and see which bucket you fall into.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you very much, Amy. This was a really interesting show. We'll have to have you back in a few years and see where you're at and what you've built. But until next time, everybody, this is Amy Garza with Dan Haberkost and Mason McDonald for the Big Picture Blueprint, signing off.